Hi, this is Alex with Maple Leaf Coffee Roasters in Roselle. I'm here to talk about our June 2026 Club Coffee, a fun honey processed coffee from the Sidamo region of Ethiopia. Check it out. So as a reminder, our coffee club program here is something that we do at Maple Leaf, that we bring in a members only coffee every month, roast it 3 different ways, send out a bunch of notes and information about it, and we give our members an opportunity to choose from one of those 3 roasts. It's something that maybe fits with their tastes. We try to bring in some different and exotic things that we don't sell on our normal shelf, and things that allow me to experiment and go outside of my normal boundaries. If this is a program that you're interested in, we always have some open spots available on our wait list. Please feel free to send us a message anywhere you can, and we'll be happy to add you to our list when a new spot opens up. So this month we have an exciting coffee from Ethiopia. We also had an Ethiopian coffee last month that was pretty conventional, Yirgacheffe, sharp, acidic kind of thing that a lot of my club members do like. This month I have a Sidamo coffee, which for that region in Ethiopia generally tends to be on the sweeter, more fruit-forward side of things. And the fun twist on this coffee this month is that it happens to be a honey processed coffee. So as a reminder, most of the coffee that people drink is either a natural or a wash process, and the process refers to the way that the coffee bean is removed from the cherry. There's different implications to each of those different processes in terms of the way the coffee roasts and it tastes and it appears, and just a variety of different things. The honey process is one that I've actually been a big fan of for many years, and I always look to find some fun honey processed coffees because this honey process adds an extra level and depth of flavor without going too far down the natural process coffee rabbit hole that sometimes really turns certain types of coffee drinkers off to the flavors that that process imparts on the coffee itself. The honey process, just a gross oversimplification, is kind of like a mix between a natural and a wash, where they do a partial drying of the coffee beans or coffee cherries in the sun, and then they send it through what is practically speaking a wash process. There's different colors of honey process too that all refer to the amount of time that the coffee is left to dry out. But for the most part, what a honey processed coffee does give you is that interesting exotic twist on the classic flavors that you might see out of any particular coffees. We've done an Ethiopian honey processed coffee once or twice in the past, not very often. So when I saw this as a coffee that I could get, I was really excited to give it a shot. And it also happens to be one of the 2 regions in Ethiopia that I generally tend to favor in my own coffee drinking quite a lot. I like coffees from the Guji and Sidamo regions quite a bit because of that fruit-forward flavor profile. And this one being a Sidamo coffee that also happens to be a honey processed coffee means this is a really fun month. And I think the way that each of these 3 coffees turned out is going to be a real treat for everyone in the club this month. Let's start with the light roast coffee. This is a coffee that, in fact, it's actually a characteristic that I'm going to say about all 3. These are tough coffees to pin down. I had trouble describing accurately to myself what it is that I was tasting in each of these 3 coffees because it changed so often every sip I took. And that's a pretty usual thing that you see out of a honey processed coffee. So just basic flavor profile in the light roast. It started out with like a light lemony kind of cinnamon, almost nutty sort of aroma in the grounds, and turned a little bit more into like a tea-like flavor in the brewed coffee itself, which isn't uncommon for a African coffee to have that kind of lighter feel to it. The more I sipped it, the more it turned into like a vanilla, creamy kind of feel, a little bit of a floral tone. It sort of borrowed a little bit in terms of the flavor profile from something that I would expect to see from the Central American coffee, but still kind of kept that core, little bit of a tiny bite that you see out of an African coffee. Just a very rounded, interesting, different coffee to drink for a light roast. This was not my favorite of the 3. That was actually the medium, which we'll talk about next. But I think if you're a light roast drinker that just loves a light roast African coffee and wants something that's a little bit more mellow but has an exotic depth of flavor, this will be a great coffee to try this month. Moving on to the medium roast coffee, this was my favorite of all 3. And let me tell you, the reason that this became my favorite is because it has a medium body, a sweetness to it, something that didn't have a really quick finish like a lot of African coffees will have sometimes. Took on more of like a peach, honey, chocolate, creamy, mildly floral, and had a tiny bit of a spice hint to it that you usually see out of a lot of Ethiopian coffees. I found this coffee to be very difficult to describe to myself. Like I said, it was something that had a different flavor, a different sense to it every single sip I took. And I think that that in a coffee is a surprising characteristic to find when you can find a coffee that is really tough to say like this is what it tastes like, because it tastes like a lot of different things. And when I find a coffee like that, that's what gets me really excited about trying it and about telling other people about it, because it's just surprising. Every sip you take, you're going to get something a little bit different. And it almost even has like a tropical fruit sort of feel to it, but that was more prominent of a flavor as the coffee cooled down. I think if I was going to have to recommend any of the 3 roasts this month, the medium roast is definitely what you want to try if you want something that's going to surprise you each and every time you come back to it. And I would definitely recommend the medium roast for all of my club members this month who are interested in that kind of experience. On the dark roast side of things, this is still a fun coffee too. I didn't do a super dark roast coffee on this because I didn't want to lose too much of that original flavor profile. Generally speaking, the darker you roast the coffee, the more you wash out the original flavor of the coffee and taste more of the roast profile in the coffee itself. But for a dark roast, this had a lot of surprises in it too, just like that medium. Still retained a lot of that fruity flavor to it. Had those peach notes that I saw more in the medium roast profile over the light. Subtle bit of a bite. We do have a dark roast coffee from Burundi right now, which, like another African coffee, a lot of times when you, even if you roast a African coffee dark, you still get a little bit of that herbal spice kind of tint to it that doesn't have a chance to hide too much. Nice kind of medium body to this, not super strong. So if you're like a dark roast curious person but wants to try something with some character, this will be a good thing to try. Conventional, rich kind of chocolate flavors in this guy too. A little bit of a lemon kind of peach feel to this still as well. Like I said, for a dark roast, this has a lot of character. Usually when I find a dark roast coffee or can find a coffee that I can roast dark, that really retains a lot of that original flavor profile. It is a nice treat, something different that you don't get more of a roast forward sort of dark roast coffee, but you do get something with a lot of character to it that you can describe some very distinct and prominent flavor characteristics that you just normally kind of wash out a lot of times when you roast a coffee dark. Probably my second favorite of all 3. This is not to say anything bad about that light roast, but I think the medium roast is really where my heart is going this month. And if you're really pressed and you don't want to try a medium, the dark roast is probably where I'll try to nudge people to. As far as the roast goes, these are a little bit smaller beans. I'm not super challenging of a coffee to roast. Honey processed coffees can generally be pretty easy to roast, especially compared to their natural process equivalents, because they are a little bit more uniform size and shape. Not something exactly like a wash processed coffee in terms of the roasting, but for sure, definitely something that was not a big challenge this month to roast. So if you are interested in joining the coffee club, like I said, make sure to send me a note. And if you are not a member of the coffee club, but you're just curious about what we're doing, you can always keep up to date with all the different club coffees every month by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Hope to catch you next time for another new club coffee video next month. Take care.